What's up, guys? We are taking another look at a NECA Godzilla figure, and this is one that I've actually really been wanting to get a hold of. It is kind of a variant to another figure that they've released. We've got the Godzilla 2001 Atomic Breath version. So this is a repainted version of Godzilla 2001, but with an added effect piece, which is definitely something I'm interested in. It comes in the standard NECA clamshell for this line, so you can see him there. In the front, we've got a shot of the classic Godzilla on the backer card, and then the back of this particular package has a product shot for this figure itself. So let's do it. Let's pull this guy out and take a look. All right, guys, here is our Godzilla 2001 Atomic Blast version, and this guy is actually one that I was really looking forward to, just because of the fact that he comes with the effect piece, which we'll talk about shortly. But if after watching this review you want to snatch one up for yourself, you can still get this guy on Big Bad Toy Store. Of course, I will put a link down below as usual, but let's take a look at articulation first, because this guy actually has maybe not necessarily more articulation, but it certainly seems to be better than some of the others. So the head has a wider range of motion with the neck. Look at how much motion you've got there. I mean, it's not tons, but compared to some of the other Godzillas, he moves quite a bit. The head can, of course, swivel all the way around. The jaw is articulated. Obviously, it needs to be for this particular figure because of the effect piece. Arms can go pretty much all the way out. You can rotate in that shoulder socket there. We have got a single joint elbow, which actually moves quite a bit, and then we've got wrist rotation, and I believe those are on a ball peg, so you can kind of wobble them back and forth, and then we've got finger articulation, so you can close the grip on him. We have a diaphragm joint for swivel, and then the legs can go, they can swivel outwards, and then you can swivel them around. We have got a single joint at the knee, and it moves pretty decently, you know, for a Godzilla, that's not bad. And then we've got a hinge and a rocker rotation down at the ankle. So he moves a little bit better than you might expect. The joints in particular move a lot better than some of the other figures I have in this line. So he just seems to be not necessarily more articulated in some ways, but he just moves around better. As far as the tail, you can rotate at the base, and then at the other segment right here, and then you have to put this small piece on at the end, and it's a bendy wire. So this is a really small bendy segment compared to some of the others. Usually you have to put this whole thing on, and then there's another segment here, so you can move it around quite a bit. I'm not upset about having less to put on, and the spikes are softer, so you know you don't have to hurt yourself to shove this tail on like I've had to do with some of the other Godzilla figures lately. So you know he's pretty well articulated, and I'm happy with it. He seems to have slightly wider range of motion, just because he's a little bigger. He doesn't have the smaller arms that some of the older Godzillas have. This particular one had a little bigger arms. He's a little beefier in some ways, and he just moves around easier, which is always a good thing. Now, as far as the sculpt on this guy, this is, as far as my collection goes thus far, this guy is entirely new for me. He does not look like any of the other Godzillas. He is not the other Godzillas that I've reviewed so far. Different sculpt, different look, different era, which is fantastic. You know, I've got a few Godzillas that are basically the same figure so far. This guy's entirely different. So we've got the new head sculpt here, which has just a fantastic look about it. I really dig this particular style of Godzilla. Of course, you've got all the jagged teeth in there, and then we'll talk about paint in a minute. You got the spikes that run down. These are, you know, particularly unique in terms of this figure, and they're a little softer. They're pliable. They look really nice, especially with this paint job. You've got the clawed hands. These have gigantic claws, and these are kind of sharp too. Watch out about that. And then you've got all the scales that run down the body. We've got these humongous feet, like, you know, big pawed feet basically with humongous claws on them as well. And then we've already talked about the fact that this is a bendy wire in this smaller segment of tail, and of course the spikes do run all the way down. As far as paint goes, I mean, that's really what the big draw is for me with this figure, is the paint job and the fact that it ties into the effect piece, which we'll talk about shortly. So we've got the painted claws, which are pretty standard for Godzilla figures, but the big deal for this is that the effect piece, the Atomic Breath, is tied into his paint job. So you've got the basically the aura that is cast on Godzilla when he uses his breath. So it's all over his arms and his leg and his torso, and of course all over that face, and it's in the mouth, and you can see the eyes are whited out, like there's no pupils. And then we've of course got the powered up spikes that run down his back, which have a nice pearlescent paint job to it. And there's different levels of blue in this as well. There's purple leaf colors, and then kind of a dark blue, and then everything's hit with a lighter blue wash over top of it. So it very much looks like it's a cast shadow almost, but it's more, you know, kind of like an aura effect that hits him and brightens up his body as he uses his atomic breath, which I find to be a very refreshing idea. Of course, you know, you really need to display him with the effect piece, but that's the point of this figure anyway. So yeah, I really dig the paint job. I think NECA did a fantastic job with how this guy looks in pretty much every way. Now, as far as his accessory, kind of weird to talk about accessories with these figures, we do have the effect piece. So it's a big piece of plastic. You can see it's just as tall as Godzilla himself. So it's kind of a translucent piece of plastic, but it does have a white, kind of light blue white overspray on it that ties into the colors on his body. And basically what you do is you just jam this thing in his mouth. It has holes on it right here for his teeth, so that tells you how far it actually goes in. It goes in really far, further than I thought, and then once you put it in, you just clamp his teeth down and he's ready to go. And this thing is not coming out. I don't see any way that it's just going to fall out. I mean, it sticks all the way back into the back of the jaw there, and then of course the teeth kind of lock it into place. So I like the idea of that. It just looks good too. It's a cool effect. I dig the fact that we've got one. You can kind of use it with other Godzillas if you play around with it well enough. And yeah, it's just cool. It's fun. It's different. And it's a quintessential Godzilla. I mean, this is what I've wanted since I've gotten one of these figures. And I think it works exceptionally well with how they implemented it. Not to mention the fact that they kind of went above and beyond with this particular version to do the whole paint job with it. And everything ties together very nicely. So at the end of the day, this figure is pretty solid. I'm actually really happy with this one. This might be among my favorite Godzilla figures thus far. And for quite a few reasons, actually. You know, I dig the sculpt, like I said. I like this version of Godzilla. I love the idea of having this particular version be influenced by the effects, so he's got that different paint job. And it just looks really nice. I like the idea that the effect is casting that glow on his body. He's more articulated. He's easier to move around. His spines did not break my hand when I was trying to put the tail on, like with past Godzillas. And yeah, he just looks good, and it's a cool figure. The implementation of the effect piece is pretty solid. I like it. It's nice and bulky and big, and it's just a chunky, good, nice, fun Godzilla figure. That's pretty much all there is to it. This one's a cool one to get, so I'd recommend snatching it up if you're a fan. So that's going to do it for this look at the Godzilla 2001 Atomic Blast version from NECA Toys. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.